Conscious parenting also for me is about being willing to actually share the reality of life, to not hide it, shrink it, limit it, change it for a child appropriate way. I don't even know what that means anymore. Of course, there are certain subjects that we would describe or talk about or inquire differently than if there wasn't a child present. But I still do not believe that there are many, if any, subjects that could be, should be, are better to be completely avoided around children and around parenting. I've been amazed over the years watching how parents avoid the subject of sex, sexuality, sexual expression. Actually, I notice in me right now that my body gets a bit at that, because I grew up in an environment that didn't truly allow me to explore my sexuality, my sex, and my desires, femininity, expression of my communication around it. It wasn't welcomed, it wasn't safe, it wasn't free. My partner's upbringing was even more so, like massively more so. And he's had to go through quite a raw and deep healing journey to expand and grow and heal from that. What I find is it's not just the subject of sex and sexuality that a lot of parents just literally not here, or they have funny words to put over it, or code, or they just don't talk about it in front of the kids. Death. I had one recently with a client. She never wanted her child to know that her child was going to have a test or an exam or an assessment, because she truly believed this was going to be trauma triggering and this would be too much pressure and that this wouldn't be healthy for her child. And we were reflecting on now her child is now an adult, a young adult, and she absolutely cannot handle the world that she's now living in, where there are pressures and expectations to perform and to come into an assessment, to be reviewed after an activity like she was assessed and tested. And she absolutely has no resource to deal with this. And we were just reflecting on what would it mean if she could go back in time and consciously parent that differently. And she said, I would let her know she had an exam at school. I would let her know that we are going to assess the situation over the next day. And she came up with all these different ways and actual examples. Now, there's a scale, isn't there, in everything? There's a scale. Knowing your child and knowing where on the scale to place that action and those words or that conversation or that experience is all about how well do you know your child. And how well you know your child ultimately is how well do you know yourself. How well do you know your partner? How well do you know the people that are hugely influencing their environment? Because it is my belief and my experience that the more I have got to know my true self, the more I have got to know my children. And the more that I've got to know my shadows and the cloudy areas in me, and why do I trigger with that, and why do I react with that, and why do I pain with that, and the more I've uncovered and I've looked at it in the mirror and I've shown my vulnerability to my children, the more that they become much more known and understood by me and therefore by themselves. And this beautiful, lovely awakening together of how we are both part of something, individually whole, but part of something together, that we influence each other, and that by actually me showing them my journey from shadow to light, or from stubbornness to flexibility, and journeying out loud with them, they get to see exactly what is going on for them. And they get to know themselves better and feel much safer in the world that they live in the bodies that they live in, and in the people that are looking after them.